Hi there everyone. So I first of all want to apologise. According to the viewfinder, from what I can see here, it looks like I'm sitting in quite a shadow. There's an awful lot of light coming in from the side here from the window because we've got a lovely sunny day for a change, and I don't think the light in the room can compensate for the amount of sunlight that's blasting in, so I'm in a bit of a shadowy spot unfortunately. So today's video we're going to be looking at steak sauce. I've got a couple of different variants of steak sauce I make, but most of the time this is the one that I revert to making because it's just so complimentary for the seitan steak. It just works so really well with it. As per usual, I'm going to show you all the preparatory stuff that you would do because, as I've mentioned many times, I'm looking at these videos as a helpful resource for people who were at the same stage where I was, which was not having much of a clue about how to run your kitchen. An awful lot of lack of experience for people of that area. For the initial part, if you know what you're doing, you can skip to just how to cook it rather than having to watch through the preparatory part of the video as well. So let's get on and do this, and hopefully you enjoy it. As like most of my videos, I'll show the entire prep work as well as the cooking. That way inexperienced cooks can get as much out of how to prepare as well as cook. So the first ingredient that we require is 4 cloves of garlic, which can be frozen or fresh, or 1 block of frozen crushed garlic. If we're using frozen cloves, let them defrost a wee bit before we chop them up. If they're fresh cloves, we need to peel them and we need to top and tail them by taking the tip and the end off. When it comes to chopping their garlic, there's not really a set method as to how to do it. We're just looking to chop into as fine a parts as possible. I tend to work along one axis of the garlic as we see here, then try to turn into it 90 degrees, but it becomes much more difficult with garlic, so it just becomes more a case of move your knife around and get it all broken up. And once we have roughly chopped the garlic, all we want to do is scoop it up and set it aside in a ramekin until we require it. So then we require either 2 large Eschalions, otherwise known as banana shallots, or 6 to 8 average sized standard shallots. And we want to take our Eschalions, we want to rip off any of the dried root segments, then we're going to cut off the top, and then we're going to half it down its length. And after halving, all we're looking to do is take and peel away the brown skin and any other layer of skin underneath the brown that might not look just as nice or just as juicy as it should do. Most of the time it's just the outer brown skins, but sometimes there's bits that just don't look right, so discard them also. And just as we would a brown onion, we're going to cut down towards the root section, but we want to leave that fan, that flappy nature, by not cutting all the way through. Then turn our shallot 90 degrees and we're going to chop into it. Now we're looking for quite fine chopped shallots here, so we don't want to move the knife too far away from the edge. We just want to chop very, very close. We're talking a few millimeters at most from the edge as we work our way down, as you can see in the vid. Repeat the process for our other Eschalion, and then we're going to move them aside and store them in a bowl until we require them. I've mentioned it in other vids, but I particularly like these silicone liners that you put over the top of your bowls or your pots. They come in all different sorts of sizes. They're slightly grippy and they just stop the fumes from the onion, or your shallots in this case, getting into the air and stinging your eyes. Next up, we want to measure 4 tablespoons or 60 millilitres, however you prefer to measure it, of white wine. I just use cheap own brand stuff from the supermarkets. It works perfectly well for what we're looking to do. And to the same deep ramekin that we've just measured our white wine into, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, which is 45 millilitres if you prefer to measure it in millilitres. Now if you don't have a ramekin that will hold this amount of volume, you could also use a bowl, but we're going to now add to the same ramekin 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. And lastly to this ramekin, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of dark soy sauce. If your bottle doesn't mention which type of soy sauce it is, 99% of the time then it will be a dark soy sauce. Now for maximum flavour, it's better to crush your own peppercorns here rather than buy crushed peppercorns or use ground pepper. So 1 teaspoon of peppercorns into a mortar and pestle, and then we're going to give them a smush up. But we're not looking for ground pepper here, we are just looking for crushed. So that's the peppercorns broken up somewhat, but not getting down to ground pepper level. You see what I mean from the way it looks in the video. And to the same ramekin that we've just added our crushed peppercorns, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of table salt. And again to the same ramekin, this time we're adding 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. And in a separate ramekin, I'm doing it in this light plastic one here so you can get an idea of the weight, we're looking for 2.5 tablespoons of dried tarragon, which equates to 5 grams. I have to do it this way because my scales just won't pick up on the difference in measurement when it's just a half a gram or so at a time. Next up, we're going to require 1 teaspoon of capers. I prefer to measure it into a ramekin and then bring them out separately when I'm ready to chop them. And we're now looking to roughly chop our capers. Again, like the garlic, there's no set method, just make sure we're getting into each caper, work the knife back and forward until we've got some well broken up, but doesn't need to be absolutely made into a paste level. And once they are roughly chopped, we're just going to take and transfer them back into the ramekin that we were storing them in. And vegetable stock wise, we're going to require 450 millilitres of stock, which equates to 3 OXO cubes, as 1 OXO cube does 190 millilitres of stock. So to get enough for 450, we need 3 cubes. And just make sure that once you have them out of your foil, that you go in with your hand and you crush and you break them all up so that we get the nice fine powder, which will help them dissolve when we add our boiling water. And to the cubes, we need to add 450 millilitres of water and make sure you give it a good stir just to help the cubes dissolve into it. And to a small to medium sized sauce pot, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And set your hob to a medium heat, and then we're going to warm the oil. Now you can check that your oil's up to temperature 2 different ways visually. You can look for the convection currents that you now see running through the oil on the video, or you can drop in a couple of chunks of your shallots, and if they sizzle like this, they're ready, and then we're looking to add all of our shallots and start to fry them. Along with the shallots, we're looking to add the garlic, and we're going to fry both of them for 4 minutes at the medium heat. And it's important to stir them regularly. We're not looking to see any burning happen to them, but we are looking for some caramelization to be happening, but not any burnt edges. So do stir them and stir them often. And as soon as the 4 minutes are up, we're going to add the vegetable stock, and then we're going to simmer this for 4 minutes. And whilst it's simmering, very sporadically give it a stir. We're just worried about any of the shallots may be stuck to the bottom. We don't want that to happen, so very sporadic stirs. And as soon as the 4 minutes are up, we're going to add in all the other ingredients that we've got set aside, all the various ramekins that we prepared earlier. We're going to add them all in. And once all the ingredients are in, give everything a really good stir together with your spatula just to make sure everything has mixed well together. We then need to simmer for 20 to 25 minutes until the sauce has begun to thicken up. We're looking to reduce it down a reasonable amount, so 20 to 25 minutes on the simmer. And once visually that you've saw that the sauce has reduced down and it is a bit thicker, we're going to remove it from the heat, and using a stick blender we're going to blend it together until we've got a lovely smooth sauce. We're looking to get it completely smooth, no particles, no chunks, no herbs left. Really attack it with the stick blender until we've got that result. So there we go, 1 steak sauce. Give me a second. All important taste test. Yummy. How do you describe it? Strong strength of pepperiness off it without it being a pepper sauce. Does that make sense? Or is that after you've swallowed you can taste it all tingling on the taste buds continually? even though it's not a steak pepper sauce. Hopefully that makes sense. I like it, I love it. It's one of my favourite steak sauces anyway. So if you do make the steak, make the sauce as well, because it's well worth it. Take care folks, all the best.